intellectualradio.com, its subsidiaries, or sponsors. Encouraging, educating, and empowering you into action. This is Warriors Talk with your host, Lady ReShell.
Hello, hello. Welcome to Warriors Talk with author and founder Lady ReShell, where we move away from awareness towards action. It's Health and Wellness Monday, and our topic for today is the reality of caring for aging or ill parents. We are live on Intellectual Radio. We just heard from the Drive at 5 with Roman. Keep it locked right here on Intellectual Radio and allow us to feed your brain. On the last episode of Warriors Talk, Rizal and I talked about co-parenting, eliminating the disconnection. Go over to YouTube, type in Intellectual Radio, and stay connected for any episodes you may have missed. The quote of the day is, "The closest thing to being cared for is to care for someone else." We are so grateful for our sponsor. We have Emanuel C.O.G.I.C with Pastor Michael Richardson, who has a very special message for us.
Greetings, I am Pastor Michael Richardson.
And I am First Lady Anastasia Richardson from the Emanuel Church of God in Christ. We're located at 3058 West Van Buren in Chicago, Illinois. We are building upon a solid foundation.
And we're inviting you to join us every Sunday morning on Facebook Live at Emanuel C.O.G.I.C at 10:15 Central Standard Time. And you can also view our videos on our YouTube channel at Emanuel C.O.G.I.C-MR. Once again, this is Pastor Michael Richardson
and First Lady Anastasia Richardson, and we are from the Emanuel Church of God in Christ. We are building upon a solid foundation.
Here are your trending topics for today. According to CNN, Dr. Anthony Fauci plans to retire by the end of President Joe Biden's current term in office. The government's top infectious disease expert told CNN on Monday. Fauci said he does not currently have a specific retirement date in mind, nor has he started the retirement process. Fauci said of his plans to leave government before the end of Biden's term, which is January 2025. Fauci said he did not expect to remain in government until coronavirus is eradicated because he said, "I think we're going to be living with this for years to come." Fauci is currently the chief medical advisor to Biden and has served as the director of the National Institute for Allergy and Infectious Disease for decades. At 81, Fauci has served more than 5 decades under 7 presidents, advising every American president since Ronald Reagan. Those are your trending topics for today. My special guest is no stranger to Warriors Talk. She is our healthy solution expert with over 20 years experience as a family physician, and she is impacting lives every single day. Hello, Doc Michelle.
Hello, Lady ReShell. How are you this Monday?
I'm good. So glad to see you. Can't wait to hear what you have to say. You're always dropping gems and educating us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I've missed the last couple of months, so it's good to be back with you.
No problem. We're excited. If you are tuned in on any form of social media, like the show, share the show, invite someone else in on the show that you feel may benefit from this valuable information. Our topic again is the reality of caring for an aging or ill parent. And I was saying earlier, Dr. Michelle, as we get older, when we get older, our parents get older, right? So even if we don't want to get old, our parents get older. And I just think about my kids. They always say, "Oh, my, you old, like you in your 50s, you old." Just wait till you get in your 50s. You're going to be like, "I'm glad to be in my 50s. So, and we know that we have one way to get in here, that's through birth, and we have one way to get out, and that's through death. And in between that time, we have to make sure that we are putting things in place so that we can have a nice quality of life. And when things do happen, we're able to confront them and deal with them and not be stressed or overwhelmed by them. Yes. So the realities of caring for a aging or ill parent. So I found the statistic, Doc, and it says the average U.S. life expectancy increased from 68 years in 1950 to 78.6 years in 2017. So we know that people are living longer. And when you live longer, you may have some issues because the body is just not going to work like it used to.
Yes, yes, you said a lot there, and you're right. This topic is very close to me, but you're right. The population, first of all, is getting older, and that's great because of all the advancements in medicine, antibiotics, treatments, right? People are living longer, and with that, comes chronic illnesses. And we always talk on the show about really sort of living your best life and being as healthy for as long as possible. And so, when you asked me what we're going to talk about today, and you mentioned caring for aging or ill parents, that's close to me. We've talked about my mom on the show for many times. And as you know, she passed in June. And so, but for the last, I think it had been maybe almost 10 years, I'd been a caregiver for her. And so through the process, I've learned a lot about caring for aging and ill parents. And I think it's something that's important to talk about. And you mentioned plan for, because we're sort of in that sandwich generation, right? We've got little kids. Well, yours are smaller than mine, some of them, but yeah, a lot of us have smaller kids we're taking care of, and then we have aging parents, right? So we've got a lot of responsibilities on both ends of the spectrum, which can be overwhelming and stressful.
I totally agree. So I wanted to talk about this subject because I was just thinking about my mom, who's 77, and she's still driving, and she was like, I don't think I'm going to be driving like much longer. Like, she already don't drive at night. She's like, I don't want to drive at night. It's too stressful for her, so she don't want to put that burden on her. And just because she's really my support system, so like if I can't go get the girls or something, I'm calling Ma. Can you go get them? And sometimes I don't really take into account of her age, and she may be moving a little slow. I just be like, go, can you just go get them, And, she never says no. If she's able to get them, then, she's right there. She will get them. But I was just thinking about, okay, she has taken care of me all this time. Like, it should be our turn to take care of them, and not that we're parenting them, because I think some people get it mixed up, like, oh, now we're the parent. No, you're not the parent. You're caring for that person because they need you to care for them. You're not necessarily dictating to them or anything like that. You're just meeting the needs that they have. So I was just thinking about her and like, what are some of her needs that she may have? Because basically she lives alone. Sometimes my niece is there every now and then. My niece will stay, or sometimes she's not there. So I just think about her just like being there by herself. If she don't answer the phone, I'm like, did she fall out? Did she fall down the stairs? Like, you don't know. She's a diabetic. Was her levels low? Is she in a coma? Like,
Right. Yeah. Because, as they age, you mentioned, right. So she is pretty independent, wants to maintain some independence, but then as the adult children, we have to also get used to mom used to be able to do all these things, or dad used to be able to do all these things, but I have to shift how I think about it too, right? In knowing that maybe they can't do those things, and knowing that if you ask, for the most part, they're going to try and do it for you. So it does take us too, if people are out there listening that have these aging parents, to think about maybe they can't do everything, or it's a little bit more taxing for them to do certain things, but of course they will accommodate us. And so that goes into some of the planning, right? As you think about, okay, well, if I'm going to continue to need someone to pick up my kids or to be there for them after they get out of school, and it can't be that person, who is going to be that person, right? And that's where talking to the rest of your family comes in. Would it be a family member, or would it have to be a paid service, or what's available to you? Planning can certainly decrease the stress, right?
Yes. And so what I did was, because sometimes I do call on her to get them after school, and my two are in high school now. So they may be on after school activities and they may not come straight home. They may have a job. So then my 10-year-old, I didn't want her walking home by herself. So I just enrolled her in aftercare. So she's in aftercare until 6 o'clock. That gives me time to get off work and go and get her. And I'm not bothering anybody else or stressing them out to, try to get over there and get her. So
Yeah, and it is a change, right? It's a change in what the routine has been, not only for you, but for your daughter, for your mom, for everyone involved. But really talking about it, thinking about what those needs are going to be, not only for yourself and, for me, but for my mother. My mother was 88 when she passed, but you mentioned your mom lives alone. Yeah, my mom lived alone until her last hospitalization. She was very independent, started to decline as she said her body was failing, right? The mind is good, but the body sometimes will fail us. Um, so thinking about what's important for your mom, what would be important for that parent as they get older, and so you can think about, do they want to stay in their home? Are they open to assisted living situations, a different type of living situation? Would they have someone come into the home as a homemaker to give them some of that support, for those hours that they would need, maybe at the end, bathing, those activities of daily living, fixing your meals and things like that. So you don't want to ever get sort of caught off guard when those needs come about. So if your parent is aging and you've noticed changes, maybe they're slowing, maybe they've said they're not able to do the things they used to, think about what plan you're going to put in place. If they're siblings, talk to them, so that you can all come together, and that will decrease not only stress, but friction amongst the family and the different people that would be involved in caretaking for that person.
exactly. And it's not like, okay, everything is on this one person that keeps running over there. And the good thing is that I have three brothers that live in the city. Well, two that live in the city and they live close by her. And me and my other brother is maybe 15 minutes from where she is. So if we need to get to her and her neighbors, you have to get to know your neighbors because sometimes they can help out. You can call the neighbor and be like, hey, can you go check on, my mom and see what's going on? Like, especially if you live out of town and you're not able to get to your parent and something happened, you have to have people in place so that you can be able to contact them and they can be your eyes and your ears and report to you what's happening.
hmm Right. And when you have elderly parents that live by themselves too, that you can consider getting like a life alert bracelet. Right. You hear about that. I fall and I can't get up, but it's good because they feel better, because if something was to happen and they can't reach a phone or they can't, notify the neighbor, they can press that button and that would notify the people that she has listed as the emergency contact that something is going on, right? Do I need to call 911? Do I need to get over there and check on mom? So some insurances cover that life alert, some don't, but it's a good thing if that elderly person wants to maintain their independence and live by themselves.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
Mhm.
I wanted to talk about, I had a question, Dr. Michelle. Have you found that when it comes to people taking care of their parents, their aging parents, that they have a hard time having a conversation, first of all, about what's going on? Like you're watching your parent decline, you see things like, have you found people just having a hard time to have that hard conversation about what they're going to do?
Yes, I mean, definitely it was hard for me to have that conversation to say, hey, maybe you need more help at home. I'm seeing that you're slowing down, right? Um, for my mother, couldn't get out as much, right? So sometimes having those conversations can be difficult, but it is important to have them, again, because you realize that the parent, they recognize that there are things that may be changing too. Sometimes in dementia or Alzheimer's, not as much. They may not want to talk about it or recognize the changes we do, right? A lot of times, patients and the caregivers will come to me and they will say, they'll pull me aside maybe before I go in a room and say, hey, I'm concerned about mom, right? And so that's okay if you are that person's caregiver, daughter, son, person that's taking care of them. You can have those conversations with their provider as well, because sometimes the providers can do specific little what we call mini mental exams in the exam room that will tell us, does this person have dementia? Do we need to look a little bit more? We can assess, their mobility and all of those things that are important for someone to live by themselves. And as we know, some patients may take that information better, differently from their provider versus their child, right? Because you're always their daughter and son, right? So sometimes if you're having difficulty having those conversations with your parent, bring in that trusted provider as a confidant to say, hey, next time mom comes in, I've been concerned about ABC. Can you bring that up with her? And that's completely within guidelines.
Awesome. Mylea said this conversation is so important.
It is. You said the first thing was our population is getting older, right? We're getting older, the population is getting older, and we have to have those resources, not only from what we are able to provide, but then the resources that are out there for caregivers and different type of living situations, homemakers, respite care for people who are really sick. So important to have the conversation for sure.
And to let you know that you're not alone. So if you are, the main contact to where you're taking care of your parents, if you need a break, they have people that can come in for so many hours a day to give you that break. So you don't have to do it by yourself, even if you don't have people in your family that will be able to help you do it.
Yeah, that's important. I've had to mention that to some caregivers that, hey, it's okay if you need someone to come in and get that respite help for a few hours a day so you can go and do the things that are important to you too, because part of being a caregiver is also taking care of yourself, right? We've talked about that. You can't be the best caregiver to someone else if you're not taking care of yourself. For me, that was really, trying to find time to exercise, trying to find times to do the things that made me feel good. So when I go to take care of my mother, I'm like, oh, okay, right? Because there's a lot to that, a lot that they'll ask for, things they'll say, and it can be very stressful. So you want to be in the right state of mind to be the best caregiver so that when that time comes and they do transition, for me, I felt comfort in that I did what I needed to do for her. I was there with her. And you want to be able to, because you can't get that time back, to be able to say, yes, we did the right thing. When that time came for them to transition, that they were, it was a smooth process, and you can feel comfort in that for the rest of your life.
Awesome. So you hit on one of my points that I wanted to talk about. When you are taking care of a ill parent or aging parent, sometimes you have the physical effects of it. And Doc mentioned that, you have to take care of number one in order for you to be able to pour into somebody else and physically, take care of somebody else, because you may have to do some lifting. There may be some physical work, and you have to make sure that your body is in shape.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And you don't think about that. And I know there's a lot, right? We're working, we're taking care of them. We may have kids. We have all these things going on that you don't think about taking care of yourself. But that is, we always talk about this on the show, right? Your physical well-being is one of the most important things that you have, right? And you think about it when you don't feel good, right? Then we're like, oh, I don't feel good. I need to take better care of myself. But we need to do that on a consistent basis. So when the need arises for us to pull on some of those physical, mental, spiritual strengths, that we are available to do that. So prioritize your personal health. Don't feel guilty about it. I know people are listening, and you can feel guilty about taking those times to do the thing that you want to do, because there's always something else that could pull you away from that. But it's important. It is, I can't stress enough how important that is so that you can take care of that person to the best of your ability.
One of the things that I looked at was a caregiver does not have a job description. Like one day you may have to just be over there like housekeeping, and then the next day you're taking them to appointments. Like, if you're working a job, they give you a job description. You're like, I'm not doing nothing outside my job description. But when it comes to a caregiver, you just never know what that person may need.
Right. Yes. There is no job description. It can be from going to the grocery store. For me, people who know me know on Saturdays, that was the day I was doing my mother's grocery shopping, and I had a system and a plan. So so it wasn't stressful, right? I knew on Saturday I was going to do that grocery shopping. We had a plan when she had doctor's appointments. So that's part of caregiving. If I needed to fill her pill box. So there's a lot of things that go into being a caregiver, preparing meals, so that they have those. And it's a lot because you never know what could come because there is no job description, right? Any given day could bring something different, and you have to sort of be flexible to do that. And if you know that those things are stressful to you, that's when we go back to number one: take care of your personal health, take time for yourself, do that thing that needs to be done, because it's always going to be some stress with being a caregiver, but then do those things that need to be done for yourself. And it's also rewarding too. We don't want to always talk about the stress, but it's rewarding to take care of your parent, right? They've taken care of us for most of our lives, when we needed them, when we were babies and little people. So
That's true. So another, I don't want to say issue, but effect that could come into play would be financial issues.
mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's an important point to bring up is to see what type of services you have through your insurance, right? Because some insurances may not cover certain end of life care, be it hospice, be it nursing home. I mean, you want to know what is covered. Some may cover homemakers, some may not, right? So that can be something sometimes I will send patients to care.com to find homemakers and things like that if they need that. And then the simple things like financial, paying for their groceries, having to drive a different place, there's, especially the price of gas, there's all these pieces that can add a little bit of financial stress and to the picture. And again, planning can help, bringing other family members together to pitch in, and then making sure that as they get older, that we know what their insurance covers and what it doesn't for things like hospitalizations and stuff like that.
So let's talk about the structural effects, because now the family structure kind of shift. So now you're taking care of a person that was once taking care of you. And that could have the parent feeling like, they may feel a certain way.
Yes, yeah. Especially they were always sort of independent, and we were able to have my mother live by herself up until she passed, but it became a little bit more because she'd always been independent and lived by herself. For a short while, after she had surgery, she lived with us and the kids and my husband and everything, and she wanted to be back in her own space, right, to do her thing. And so sometimes when you say that structural effect, if that person has to move in with you and your family, it's important to understand that difference and how that changes the dynamic of the family as well, and having everybody open to saying how they feel and what's important for mom or dad while they're living with you.
What about the emotional effects? Because sometimes you may not say what's going on in your head. You may have all these thoughts, but you don't have an outlet to release them.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned depression in the beginning, right? Taking care of others and can be stressful, and we can feel a certain way because you are now, like you said, taking care of the person who always took care of you, and coming sort of face to face with the reality of, our mortality and all of that, right, can have you feeling depressed or sad. And it's important to acknowledge that. And if you want to talk to a therapist to get through it, do that, rely on your faith, but know that all those things that you feel are normal. As a care giver, I've had stressful days, sad days, frustrating days, all of those come together, right? And all of that is important to feel.
Yes, Felicia Moore says, I'm so glad that you're talking about this subject. Taking care of an aging parent can be overwhelming and stressful if you don't reach out for assistance and info.
Yes, yeah, it can be overwhelming and stressful. And it's important to, like we were saying, get help, talk to friends, talk to therapists, whoever to support you. As I was going through the process, I found other friends who were taking care of their parents, right? So now you have sort of a network to sort of bounce things off of and to commiserate and whatever that is to get you through those times. So, reach out to those people, professional and your friends, for that support and get the information. If it means talking to the provider to get them to know that this is important and that you need those resources, right? A lot of provider offices will have a social worker or a case manager that can help you with what community resources are available to help you, so you don't have to do it all, right? Some people will do adult daycare if they have an aging parent that just needs social interaction, right? They may be elderly, but maybe they can still get out. Maybe there's senior day programs in the area that they can go to for 4 hours a day. That's important because social interaction is also important for seniors to decrease depression. And in the time of COVID, where they were even more isolated, a lot of seniors, unfortunately, depression got worse. They were locked away in nursing homes and those type of things. So important as much as we can to keep those social interactions. My kids were busy. My daughter was at school and my son, was a senior in high school, but I always say, did you call your grandmother today? Talk to her, FaceTime her. Those things are important to seniors, right? Go by and see them, especially the little people. They love to see the grandkids if they're in the area.
That's true, because my mom always stopped by the house and she's dropping off stuff for the kids. And I'm like, we supposed to be dropping off stuff over there, but she's always, I went to the store. So she goes to the store and then she picks up stuff for the kids, some fruits, and, just something healthy for them to eat. So it's important for them to have that contact. My mom signed up for this seniors thing at the park. So the park has this silver seniors, and they have activities for the seniors to do. She can go down there and work out. They're playing bingo, they're eating, that companionship, especially if you were married for a long time and you lost your partner, like they miss that companionship. So sometimes they just want to be around, other people. And if we're busy working and we don't have, a lot of time, then we can look for programs to put them in so that they can get, that social interaction that they need.
Yes. Yeah. Great idea. And that's really important. So they feel that they have something to look forward to. Sometimes they can get out to those programs. Some programs will come to your home. Do they have a church family where they can get visitors? Those type of things. And you have to have that conversation with them to understand what do they want as they get older.
I was just thinking about how important is it to analyze their needs, to see instead of us just assuming, okay, this would be great. This would be great for you. Find out what it is that they want, what it is that they need or they desire to do. And, hopefully they're not in a place to where they are depressed and they be like, I don't want to do anything. Then you got to kind of force them to, do something. But, allow them to have an input on what it is that, they're going to be doing.
Mm-hmm. Very true. Very true. Some seniors are more social than others, and may not want a lot of that. They may just want the grandkids to come over, and that's enough for them, right? To talk to the grandkids. Some may want more to go out and do things, but you have to ask them what do they want? What makes them happy, right? For my mother, she didn't want to go out and do a lot, but if we came to visit, that was the best thing. If she could talk to the grandkids, that was the best thing. She had her friends, they would talk on the phone, and that's all she was. She's like, I'm good. So those things, and opening the lines of communication, as tough as it could be, try to do that as much as you can, because then you don't have to wonder, you don't have to plan things that they may not want to do, and you want their days, their life to be as fulfilling as possible.
Yes. Felicia said you gave out some great ideas, Doc. We have somebody here. They said late, but I'm here. Well, we're glad you're
Welcome,
here.
welcome.
I want to highlight one of my sponsors really quick, because my sponsorship is important. So we are going to highlight Paula Kelly with Allstate. And I want to say she's been one of my sponsors for a while now, maybe about 3 or 4 years. And she is an Allstate agency owner. She's located at 327 East Glenwood Lansing Road in Glenwood, Illinois. And she is selling home, life, auto insurance, whatever it is that you need. Contact her for a quote. She can be reached at 708-758-3300. And make sure that you tell her that Warriors Talk sent you. We already know that Allstate is quality insurance, so I don't have to sell you on that. So if you're just joining us, we are live on Intellectual Radio, and I am talking with Dr. Michelle. We're talking about the realities of caring for an aging or ill parent. So I wanted to talk about, I think we had about a couple more on here, Dr. Michelle, talk about not having quality people to come in, like the lack of caregivers that could come in and help, like well-trained caregivers. If you needed someone, they were saying that it was like a shortage of these individuals to come in and help.
There is a shortage, right? There is a shortage of caregivers, nurses, LPNs. I mean, all of that. And so it's hard, because you want to be sure that you are getting the right person who's going to take care of your parent. And in some cases, if you have a grandchild who's over 18, they can become a paid caregiver, depending on, and I believe that's through the Department of Aging. There's a whole process. But if there's someone, because you feel better if it's a family member that you know will take care of that person, or someone you know, or a church member. There are ways that through the Department of Aging that you can register and apply for someone that you know to be the caregiver, and they can be paid for that process. But yes, caregiving, unfortunately, since COVID, all of those sort of service line employees, especially in the healthcare industry, is very hard to find, because of many reasons, right? People have been ill, they've left the workforce, all of that.
The Facebook user is Walter. So Walter Jones.
Hello, Walter.
Oh, well, hello, Walter. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
Sarah says, I feel like we should visit them often so that they know somebody is there for them.
Yeah. And that's a good point, because sometimes seniors feel forgotten, right? They're like, everybody's going on and doing their thing, and I'm just here. And that's why that's important. The visits, or just a phone call. Just a phone call. Pick up the phone. If get those grandkids to call, and more people, even if they don't feel like talking, they know somebody cared to call them. Very important.
Yes, my sister brought my mom this thing called, it's a portal, and it's almost like FaceTiming, right? And it just sits on the table, and you can FaceTime her through it, so she has all of the grandkids, kids, numbers stored in there, so anybody can FaceTime her anytime she can see. So, and that's good, because a lot of our seniors are not good with the electronics or the technology, so she doesn't have to do not much but just say the name and call so and so, and it will FaceTime them. So
Great.
We have to integrate, technology into their lives some type of way, because we know that it makes life easier for them, and then they won't be so frustrated and, feeling alone because maybe you can't get over there, but a phone call, you're a phone call away.
Yeah, and that's a good point, right? Because sometimes seniors, the dexterity in their hands, they can't call on the phone and press those little numbers and all of that. So teaching them, I joked my mother to be 88, she would text me all day though. So she knew and was able to use that, and she knew how to FaceTime, and those things are important. So if you can teach them that technology or incorporate something that's even a simpler technology so that they can keep in contact with people, really, really helps them to feel better.
I'm still trying to get my mom to text. I be trying to get her to send me pictures, everything. She was like, yeah, I can't do all that. She was like, I'm gonna wait for the grandbaby to get here and get them to do it for me. I'm just like, Ma, you have to learn how to do this stuff. Like,
Yeah, I don't know how my mother kept doing it, but she could text me. She would tell me, pick this up at the grocery store. I'm like, what? But she did it.
I guess some of them gravitate toward it, and once you get a hold of it, it becomes easy for you to, when they come out with all these different things, you'll be able to catch on to them. Another effect is the lack of the workplace support, when now all of a sudden you have to take care of an aging parent, you may have to take time off work for doctor's appointments, or if an emergency come up, and sometimes they may not be understanding.
Yeah, that's important topic to bring up, right? You have to have the supportive workplace. You can use FMLA, right? Family Medical Leave Act allows you to take off so much time and days as needed to take care of someone who may be ill or so forth, right? Because with seniors, sometimes things come up that you don't plan, right? So talk to your human resources, if you have that at your job, about what's available to you, so that you have that in place if you ever need to take off or take time to take care of them. To appointments, that's very important, right? If they have regular appointments every 3 months, you don't want that to be an issue for your job. You want that to already be in place on paper, that you are the caregiver for that person.
Awesome. I want to talk about really quick, how do we know when it's time for us to step in and take care of our aging or ill parent?
Yeah, well, it's not always black and white. You mentioned in the beginning things that you notice, right? I always say I have pretty good instinct. For one thing, use your instincts, right? If you know and you notice changes, don't ignore them. Bring them up with your parent. If we talked about, if you're not comfortable bringing it up and you're really concerned about something, bring it to their provider. They should have a primary care provider that knows them pretty well, hopefully, that you can bring that concern to. And they can tell you, oh, well, I've been seeing your mom for years, and I do see a decline in her. And here are the things that we should talk about with her, right? We talked about planning too, right? Make sure you have power of attorney, make sure they have advanced directives. These are things a healthcare provider can help you with. And then you mentioned, I wanted to get back to the Allstate person, because you want to have life insurance as well. Very important. Funerals and burials, I've just gone through this in the last 30 days. They're expensive. And you want to have life insurance in place and plan so that when that comes up, that it's not a stress to the entire family and things can go smoothly, for sure.
Yes. I was talking to Rizal, that co-host with me on the show as well. He lost his mom about 30 days ago. And he was talking about how, expensive it is, for the funeral to get the casket. He was talking about how he ordered his casket online. It was cheaper than what they was trying to sell him there, and these people know that you are emotional right now. So they're going to get you, right there while you're so emotional, and you end up spending that whole life insurance policy on a funeral when that's not what the life insurance policy is for, so it
Yeah,
makes
so those are
sense.
things. Yeah, you have to
Yeah.
think about that. You don't think about that, right? Because no one wants to talk about ordering a casket until the time that you need a casket. And like you said, you're emotional and you're like, oh, I just want to get it done. And so think about things like that. Casket online, the casket store. I mean, there are other places besides the funeral home, but this is something to, no one wants to talk about that. But we, as you said, we come in here one way, we're gonna all leave out, that same way. And so we, as uncomfortable of a topic as it is, these are things that either put it in writing, have a plan, and have thought about what you would do in those situations.
I heard that this person created this website, and I want to say it's called Last Wish. And so you would go on the website and you would just, register, type in what your last wishes are. And when you pass, you just let your family know that you give them the codes or whatever, password, and they're able to go on there and find out what your last wishes are. And then that way there's like no confusion with anybody,
Yeah.
nobody can change it or anything because at that point you have the password. So that's one way to do it. Having these hard conversations, and it's a hard conversation because who wants to talk about death, dying, or what if I get sick? Like nobody wants to talk about that. We avoid the conversation at all costs until it hits us in the face and we have no choice. And then sometimes when we at that point we're making these emotional decisions, that may cost us financially. So I was thinking about my mom when my father passed. Once we buried him, she took whatever money was left and paid for her own funeral, her own burial, everything, just paid for it. Whatever was left over, she just said, okay, my brother is in charge of everything, my oldest brother. And she told him what to split between the siblings so he knows what to do. And it's just like, we don't want to do that because we don't want to think about our own mortality. We don't want to think about us dying and not being here. We don't want to have to face that. But you leave the people who are here, they're scrambling, trying to figure out what to do. And sometimes they don't even know what the paperwork is. They don't even know what type of insurance you have. They don't know any of that stuff. And then we see a GoFundMe, and it's stressful, it's embarrassing. Like,
yeah, that's so important. The one thing my mother kept, in her later years, she kept giving me the papers, right? So I would have the papers, and you have to have that. And if it's something that for the senior, I know my aunt she had written down in the will or whatever, it was a will, but she wrote down who she wanted to get what. It was notarized, and she said, just don't open it, until I pass. And so we had that. At least it's in writing, right? So whatever way you can do that, we should all have estate planning. You should all have that in writing, especially if you know you have a lot of siblings and a lot of people who will be involved in making the decisions, to avoid that stress. We don't want to talk about it, but it's a reality. And the best time to talk about it is when you really don't need it. So
right. And when you're able to, their mind is still sharp and they're able to make those decisions and not try to drag it out of them when they're incoherent. Like,
right. When at a stressful time, they're not going to want to
yeah,
talk about it then, right? They're not going to want to talk about it. So now, if you have that elderly parent and they're in good health, that's great. But say, hey, do you have any important papers that you want me to keep related to life insurance? Do you have life insurance? Who do you want to make decisions? And that's a power of attorney for healthcare. My mom had that, right? Who's going to make decisions for you when you're not able to make decisions for yourself? Who can make financial decisions for you? Put all of that in writing, because you don't want to get to the point where it's a dire sort of issue and we don't know who, the hospital may not know who to turn to, banks don't know who is in charge, all of that. Housing, does mom have a house or something, and who is that going to, whose name is on the mortgage? There's so many things that we don't want to think about what's going to happen at that time, but we're all going to die at some point. Our day will come, and how do you want that to be? What do you want to leave your family with, right? And I think my mother had pretty much everything sort of open. She gave me everything I needed to make the process smooth when that happened. And so it just made it a less stressful situation, and that's important.
And that's is really important. Again, because they're gonna take advantage of you because you're gonna be in an emotional
Yes,
state. So anything that
right.
you can do to eliminate that or minimize it is
Hmm.
important. Hey, Cadillac, thank you for
Hmm.
joining us. Anna says yes. So you have to give them time to talk about it. You do give them the time right now where they can think about the important stuff. She said it's important to think about.
Hmm.
It is, and we don't like to
It
think
is.
about it because again, it makes us think about our own mortality as well.
Right.
But you don't want to leave your kids and your people here scrambling trying to figure out what to do, where the insurance papers are. Oh, she was
Is
investing, but
there any paper? Are there
right.
papers? Right.
Yes, and then you find out, oh, she cast her insurance thing in early, so she'll have no insurance. So now,
Right.
now we got to collect
Right.
money from the family. Like it shouldn't be like it really. Life insurance is there, and it doesn't cost that much. I'm sorry, guys. It doesn't cost that much for you to get it, right? We just showed you Allstate. It takes a little bit if you're getting your hair done and your nails done, and chop a little bit off that and get a policy,
Yeah. And the
or get a
best time
policy
to
for your
get that
parents.
policy, I'm sure Auntie Anna will tell you, well, the best time to get that policy is early,
Yeah,
right? Because your rates will be cheaper as well, but you want to do those things before you need those things. We all
yes,
have health insurance, right? We hopefully those we have health insurance because we know at some point we could get sick and we need coverage for hospitalizations, medications, right? So we should have life insurance, same thing, right? At some point, we're going to transition to another life, and you want to be prepared for that.
yes. So here are some things about when is the right time to step in. I think you covered them all, Doc. So one is they're looking physically worn and tired. Every time you come over there, they're just looking worse and worse. Um, the house, the house is a mess. The outside of the house is a mess. They used to be really neat, and now they can barely clean up after themselves. And you left a week ago in the same plate, food still on the table. Forgetfulness. You're constantly having to tell them things all over again. They thought they turned off the stove, they didn't, and that could be scary in itself. Right there.
Yes. Hmm.
They don't want to do the things that they loved doing at one point. They're just losing all interest in life itself. And then another important one is hygiene.
Hmm. Yes.
Hygiene. They used to be really neat, hair done, shaven, clothes really neat, and now it's like, who is this person?
Yeah, and sometimes if they have a medical illness that maybe makes them short of breath or weak, and so forth, the mind might be right, but they can't physically get it done, right? And like you said, you want to notice those changes because they may not want to bring it up, right? Because they on some level they understand that things are changing and it's hard, right? We can't imagine ourselves in our 50s and our 80s and losing our independence, right? So it's hard for them as well. So but if we can pick up on those subtleties, we can start a conversation with them and prepare for what they will need, right? To remain independent in their home, to feel safe, and all of those things.
Because we know they don't like to move. Like if they've been somewhere for a while, they do not like to for you
Mm-mm.
to
It's their comfort.
pull
Yeah.
away stuff and go to a new place. They looking like this is not gonna work.
Right.
So you
Right.
have
So
to be
what
able
can
to,
we do to keep them in their home?
yes,
Hmm.
absolutely. Because it's familiarity to them. It's comfortable. It's safe. So
And there's history in that home, right? I've had patients,
yes.
if the spouse died, but they lived there with the spouse for 40 years, right? They don't really want to leave. It's comfort. They can smell, see their spouse there. And so that's important, right? Because you can imagine if you pluck that person out of that situation, it would be a difficult thing, right? For them to live in a different place. Sometimes you have to do that, in which case you want to prepare them and not do anything in a sudden way. Or if you can keep them in their home with those supports we talked about.
Yes. So do you feel like kids are automatically, Doc, the person who should take care of an aging parent? Like, is it just automatic because I'm the child?
No, it doesn't have to be. Absolutely not, right? It's a choice that you make, right? But you want to have a conversation with, if it's siblings, if it's cousins, if it's, what is the plan? Will it be a sibling, or will it be some people choose a nursing home situation, which is okay, right? What works for you and your family situation? But anyone can be a caregiver, right? If you choose to do that, it doesn't have to be a family member. Sometimes, as we said, you have homemakers come in and they're doing a lot of that caregiver situation. Some people have live-in caregivers that take care of them.
Do you feel like caregiving is a thankless job?
Oh, that's hard, because some people say, yeah, I don't feel like I get any thanks from that person I'm taking care of, right? Because they're going through their own thing as well. But the thing is that the reward, like for me, taking care of my mother, as frustrating as it could be on days, I was able to keep her in her home, right? Um, I was able to keep giving her the independence that she wanted, until her last days, right? So that was thanks for me. I feel good about that, right? But it's difficult when you're going through it. And that's why I said we talked about talking to people, talk to your friends, right? Get that support, and that, yeah, you're doing the right thing. You're doing a good job. Yeah, I know maybe you didn't get that thanks from them on that day because they're going through their own things, and they may not be able to do that or say that to you. But know that, there's nothing, it's a priceless job, really, right?
So true. The realities of caring for an aging or ill parent. Doc, can you give us some words of wisdom?
Yeah. So as we started out saying, our population is getting older. We're all probably going to go through this stage of taking care of our aging parents. And it's important to know a couple of things that are important. Plan, right? Plan for what's going to happen when mom or dad can't take care of themselves. Plan for, do we have life insurance? Who will be the decision maker? Get that power of attorney. Those are the things, right, that we have to plan those things so that when the time comes, we're not overwhelmed. And then as we're going through the process, the other piece is take care of ourselves, right? Still do the things that are important to you. Still go and exercise, go and hang out with your friends, so that when you do have to give to that situation, that you feel better about that giving. You also want to be able to be well supported. So take care of yourself, plan, and really ask for help when needed. Those are the things that are really can really get you through it. You don't have to do it alone.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Michelle. As always, you do not disappoint. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Lady ReShell. Always a pleasure.
Awesome. I am going to highlight my last sponsor, you guys. It is Mary Kay with Gloria Dotson. She is catering to all of your beauty needs from head to toe. You can go over to marykay.com/GDOTSON for some exciting new products. Join me next Monday right here on Intellectual Radio at 6 p.m. I will leave you with these words of wisdom. To care for those who once cared for us is one of the highest honors. As always, thank you for tuning in to Warriors Talk with author and founder Lady ReShell. where we are changing lives one warrior at a time.
Thank you for listening to this week's edition of Warriors Talk with Lady ReShell. To find out more about Warriors Talk, follow at Warriors Talk, the number 1, on all social media outlets, and Warriors Talk with Lady ReShell on YouTube. Please join us next week and every Monday evening at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time on intellectualradio.com for Warriors Talk with Lady ReShell, where we encourage, educate, and empower you into action.